Boa tarde, eu sou a professora Heloísa Estelita, da FGV, e estou hoje entrevistando o professor Eduard Ivanov, que é professor da National Research University Higher School of Economics em Moscou e professor visitante aqui na FGV. Professor, welcome to GV, and could you tell us a little bit about your professional background?
So thank you very much, first of all. I'm very glad to be here in Direito GV and in Brazil and teach in this class. I'm a professor of international law at the National Research University Higher School of Economics in Moscow, in Russia. I'm graduated from the Moscow State University, from the Faculty of Law, of course. I have also professional experience not only in the scientific field but also in state service, in the Russian Financial Intelligence Unit, and I was responsible for financial investigations in the field of money laundering and the financing of terrorism. And also I've been a co-chair of the working group on typologies in the Eurasian group on combating money laundering and the financing of terrorism. It's one of the FITF-style regional bodies. So I'm also a visiting professor at the University of Münster in Germany, and I'm also very glad to be here as a visiting professor.
And talking about typology of money laundering, which one is more common in Russia?
There is a lot of different typologies because these guys are very clever. I mean, these guys who develop these typologies.
Yes.
We have a lot of problems with, for example, misuse of cash transactions in this field. We have also a lot of problems with offshore zones because sometimes it's quite difficult to receive information from these countries and territories. Mm-hmm. And all the possible typologies we also have in Russia, the misuse of insurance sector or securities market and so on.
Okay. And what motivated you to come to Brazil to give a course about money laundering?
We have very good cooperation with the Direito GV and the Law School Global League. The Higher School of Economics is also one of the members of this new organization, but very good and global organization. And my Brazilian colleagues invited me to teach this course here, and I'm very glad because I have very good group of students, very international students from Brazil, from the US, Canada, and the different European countries, also even India, so everywhere in the world presented here in my group. And I have very good communication here with my Brazilian colleagues, also very interesting exchange of ideas, of information, of professional experience in this field.
Is it your first time to Brazil?
It's the second time. First time I've been here in São Paulo during the second meeting of the Law School Global League, and it's my second visit here.
And what can you tell us about your experience in teaching here in FGV?
First of all, I would like to say that it's a very good opportunity for professors to teach here. It's everything very good prepared. Everything was very good prepared for my visit, and I would like to thank the international office of Direito GV for this wonderful preparation of this visit. And it's also very interesting for me to teach, to communicate with different students from different countries and also with different background, because I have some students in a group which are already graduated from different universities. Some of them are undergraduate. I have also economists, not only law students, mm-hmm. and we can discuss this topic from different positions and different points of view.
Professor Edward, we'd like to know your ideas about terrorism.
So at the moment it's really a global international problem. It's one of main main parts of my research activities during the last 4 years. And now we can see the situation that many countries, very quiet countries, which never had such problems before, like for example Sweden or Norway, now have problems with terrorists. It's horrible terrorist attacks, like this Breivik case, for example, in Norway, and terrorist attack in Stockholm in the central street, in Drottninggatan in Stockholm in Sweden. And of course Russia has this experience in combating terrorism. It's a really global international problem because we have new challenges for international law, activities of international terrorist organizations as independent actors, more or less independent of any state. And we have another problem, the problem of states supporters of these terrorist activities. And I try to develop some ideas about responsibility of international terrorist organizations under international law. The idea is to recognize these organizations, not of course as subjects of international law, but as subjects of responsibility under international law, and establish a legal base for responsibility of states, supporters of these organizations. Because at the moment we don't have such legal base in international law for responsibility of states for this support. It's a very interesting topic, and I'm going to continue this research in cooperation with my foreign colleagues also.
From the legal point of view, which are the challenges on implementing regulations to combat terrorism?
First of all, we cannot develop at the moment a common definition which will be acceptable for all the states. On a personal level, we all understand what does mean terrorism, but all the attempts to develop a new comprehensive convention against international terrorism were unsuccessful because states cannot develop a common definition of an international terrorism. It's a one serious problem. Different points of disagreement in this field. The first one, we should apply military approach or law enforcement approach for purposes of combating terrorism. Second point, if different revolutionary movements should be excluded or should be included in the definition of terrorism. Because if we will analyze different regional conventions, for example, Arab conventions against terrorism, these movements are excluded from the definition of terrorism. I think that in the moment we have already a common position of the United Nations, at least, that it doesn't matter which motivation these terrorists have, important is what they do.
Yeah.
And if they are going to kill innocent people because of, doesn't matter, revolution or religious or other ideas, political ideas, these persons and groups should be qualified, should be responsible for terrorism, should be qualified as terrorists and should be responsible for terrorism. It doesn't matter which particular motivation they have. And the final point of disagreement, if international humanitarian law should be also applicable for this in this field of combating terrorism. If these groups will be, for example, participate in international or non-international military conflict, if these groups should be also subjects of international humanitarian law, if the member of these groups should be so recognized as combatants. My position, it's not the right approach, and these groups and members of these groups should never be recognized as legal combatants, because the main goal of acting of these groups to act against international law, not in accordance with rules of international law, but against international law. And we shouldn't recognize this as legal combatants, I think.
Do you think that the jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court should cover also terrorism?
It was a long discussion, but I think that the main problem is not a criminal liability of physical persons, like in this statutes, in the Rome Statute of International Criminal Court. The main problem, I think, is a recognition of particular organizations, terrorist organizations, as international terrorist organizations. Because at the moment, we have in many countries national lists of terrorist organizations, and if we will analyze these lists, they are in many parts completely different, and even different numbers of these terrorist organizations. For example, Hamas is is listed in the United States as a terrorist organization and not listed in Russia as a terrorist organization. And it's not just one example in this field. And I think it's important for the combating crime of international terrorist organizations to establish and develop an international mechanism of recognition of these organizations on the international level as international terrorist organizations. And this decision can be prejudicial for national courts and can play a significant role for the future criminal liability of members of these organizations in different countries of the world, just for membership, for participation in these terrorist organizations. I think it could be very important, very useful for the prevention of terrorism. Because we had, for example, some times ago, a case of Mohammed Merah and friends. French police knew that this man has close relations with terrorist groups in Afghanistan, visited his even military camp of terrorists in Afghanistan, but they didn't have legal base to arrest him and to prevent terrorist attacks in France. And only when he killed several innocent people in France, the police started investigation, and finally he will killed during the police operation in Paris. But you will have legal base to prevent these terrorist attacks and to arrest these people just for membership, for participation in these terrorist organizations before they will commit the act of terrorism, a particular terrorist attack. I think it would be very useful for the world peace and security, and for the security of many countries, and for life of innocent persons, private persons, would be killed during these attacks.
Brazil and Russia are included in the BRICS.
Yeah.
And do you think it makes sense for these countries to cooperate, especially Brazil and Russia?
I believe so, that the cooperation in this group of BRICS countries is one of the priorities of Russia, of Russian government now, because we have a lot of possibilities of cooperating in the economic field and have more significant impact in the discussion in the world about the development of world economics. And we can also cooperate in other fields of interests, and also try to develop same standards of cooperation of economic activities, even same standards in my particular field in combating terrorism and prevention of money laundering and prevention of corruption. I think it could be very useful, first of all, for the development of our economics, this type of cooperation, and Russia supports it very much.
And can you tell us a little bit about the importance of the Global League of Law Schools?
It's also a great idea, because we have in the league universities practically from all parts of the world. We have Brazil, we have United States, we have European universities, we have universities from China, from South Africa, from Australia. And it's a very good platform for cooperation, for development of research activities, for development of summer schools with co-teaching of professors from different universities. It's a great opportunity for students to have just in one place professors from completely different parts of the world and discuss particular topics, taking into account different positions, different legislations, different scientific experience of these professors. And also one of the ideas in the development of master programs, LLM programs, which could be developed in the league, and in the future all the students from different universities, members of the league, can participate in these programs and study in this program, in this LLM program. I think it's a great opportunity for students to do that.